At these brothers, I want to talk about something, man. Knowledge is good, but power is what you want, man. Knowledge is good, but power is what you want. Power is everything, right? And I was thinking about this, man, because I was just reading a comment on one of my videos, and it's for some reason one particular video, like 2 or 3 people asked me about my favorite books. And I haven't made content about that in a long time, but if you go back and watch that condo tour video, I showed the 5 books that I brought with me, 5 or 6 books. So those would be some good starts if anybody wants some good books to read. But I want to talk about this real quick. Like, knowledge is good, but power is everything. And when I say knowledge, or when I'm talking about knowledge and power, I'm specifically talking about you just obtaining information as opposed to power. You utilizing that information. It's a night and day difference. Because see, I'm gonna tell you this. A lot of people crave knowledge. Like, you have a lot of people, whether in certain fraternities, whether in certain parts of certain ministries, they love knowledge. They love to be able to quote the Bible. They love to be able to quote all these different books, and that's good. Like, we should be reading as many books as we possibly can. But knowledge is really nothing but information that you can share with your brothers, but it's not, you can't really stand on it and utilize it until it's power, until you're actually using that information in your life, right? So this is what I want to talk about. Like, when I talk about power, this is how you want to start utilizing, how you want to start stepping into your power, man. And it's 3 in the morning, man. I know I'm probably talking crazy, but it's not about having all these things to quote. It's about reading 1 or 2 books and really just having one thing to stand on. One quote to stand on. I'm gonna say it again. It's not about being able to say, hey, you know what, I've read Outthinking the Devil, Outwitting the Devil. I read A Singular Truth. I read all these books and I can quote this and I know these verses from the Bible. It's not about that. It's about what have you read that you've implemented, that you're standing on, and that you're using. Like, what are you using? Power. It's about power, man. Like, for example, if I just look at my life, my own life, right? There's really only been two quotes that I've read from books that I've stood on. Like, I can sit there and tell my brothers, man, hey, man, go read Outwitting the Devil, man. And there might be some highlights in there, man, that kind of inspire me. But when I talk about the power I use, I can go to 2 quotes, right? The first quote is, and I shared this with y'all a million times. First quote is James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. When I read, a man does not attract what he wants, a man attracts what he is, brother, I ran with that. I sit there and read that 100 times, man. It, absorbed it, and not only just had it to be able to share with my brothers, I could stand on it. I started utilizing it. It went from being knowledge to power. Man does not attract what he wants. Man attracts what he is. So when I say use it as power, the first thing I had to do, man, was apply it to myself. You know what I'm saying? I guess I got some kind of DOT check mark or something. I don't know what this is they got. At 0 dark 30. I guess that's what it is, like a DOT checkpoint or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I started using that. Man does not attract what he wants. Man attracts what he is. So the first thing I did was, okay, you know what? Let me look at myself. Okay, I understand what I can do with this, but before I even move forward, let me look at myself. If man does not attract what he wants, he attracts what he is. Let me look at my world and see what I am. And I looked at my world, man. And at that time, I'm like, man, I just gone through a divorce. My money is jacked up. The repo man is knocking it. My health is bad. I'm like, I don't care what I say. I don't care what I post on the gram in the book. I don't care what life is doing. Like, what I have in my life is what I am. Is what I am. In other words, I took that from just being something that inspired me to something that I used on myself and stood on. I looked at myself. Man does not attract what he wants. Man attract what he is, man. And it took me some. I'll say this. I stood on that one quote and used it as power for probably 2009, for probably a decade. For a decade, that was what I lived by. That one quote. I read all these other books, but that one quote for 10 years was what I stood on. And not only did I use it to look at myself, I use it to create new worlds. I'm like, okay, if this is the same, if this is, I'm find my peanuts, brother. I'm like, if this is true, and I've spent the last year observing myself. Go some comments today, man. I said, if I spent the last decade, the last year looking at myself, observing the world that I've built, I said, now I have that same power to build a new world. You know what I'm saying? That same, so it wasn't about me reading 1 million books. It wasn't about me having 100,000 quotes. It was about me finding one quote and transferring it from knowledge to power. You are. Okay. What it, one second, brother. So it's about power, man. It's not about having a whole bunch of quotes. I stood on that for a whole decade. For a whole decade, man, I built my life on that. I built a life where I got a little healthier. I got a little more money in the bank. I was able to get better jobs. I was able to walk away from my job, strictly based on the knowledge of what I am, what I'm going to attract is what I am. Stood on that. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, a lot of people, man, we'll read a lot of these books and get all these quotes and da. But it creates confusion within our mind. Take one of those quotes, take one or two of those quotes, take one or two messages you've heard from a YouTube video and stand on that. And I'm not saying don't read books, but stand on that. You know what I'm saying? It's like stand on that. Transmute that knowledge into power, man. Where you consume, where it's your watchwords, it's your creed. You know what I'm saying? Power. Power is what you want, man. Power is what you want, and it's narrowing down. It comes down to the same thing I'm always saying. It comes down to a truth. So what I did, man, that's all I'm really saying. To take something from being knowledge and making it power is making that one thing your truth. And you can't have many truths. You can't have but one truth. So you sitting there trying to stand on all these quotes and all this stuff, man. It's causing confusion. You know what I'm saying? You're doing too much. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll get my screen back right, man. It'll work. So yeah, man, you want power. And then I can say around 2020, I changed my truth. I changed my truth, man. And I'll say, and I stood on, like I said, I stood on that quote for like a decade. And then I came across what's his name? Not Robert Collier. Hannell. Charles Hannell's work, which I'd already had that book for some years, Master Key System. In the Master Key System, Charles Hannell was talking about something that resonated with where I was in life. Charles Hannell was talking about, hey, you know what? At some point, a man is going to find himself in a stagnant space. You know what I'm saying? And he said, in order, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, brother. He said, in order to come out of that stagnant space, man must understand 3 things, or he must apply 3 things in his life. He said, a man must first have knowledge of his power, right? He said, 2, that man must have the courage to dare, and 3, he must have the faith to do. And I'm gonna say, when I read that, man, it stuck to me just like James Allen's words stuck to me a decade before. You know what I'm saying? And of course, I was still reading all these books, but that became my truth. That became something that gave me a completely different level of power. Again, knowledge is good, but power is everything, man. So I took those words and made it part of my truth, meaning I said, okay, you know what? Do I have knowledge of power? If not, let me identify who I am, what I'm capable of, what I'm built like, what I can go through, what I'm able to achieve. Let me understand that first. Knowledge of my power. You know what I'm saying? And I might have thought I was a powerful brother, man, but when I spent some time and started digging deep into not the knowledge of this world, not the information of this world, but when I started to go inside and really understand like who I am, which is really understanding what God is. You know what I'm saying? Because if I'm made in the image, then if I want to see, that's a whole other conversation. But in order to see who God is, all you really have to do is look at mankind and reverse engineer it. If we're made in the image of God, all you have to do is look at mankind, and you can really see what God is. Or you can look at what God is and see what mankind is made of, right? It's the same thing, reversibility, right? So I understood my power, right? Then Hannah said, do you have the courage to dare? The courage to dare. And the first time I read that, probably the first 20 times I read that, it sounded good, but I didn't really understand what Hannah was saying. Right? When Hannah was saying the courage to dare, it's like, oh yeah, I got the kahunas. I got the kahunas to go and apply for the new job. I got the kahunas. I got the courage to do things that my peers around me aren't doing. Courage to dare. But when I really started thinking about it over the course of years, when Hannah was saying, do you have the courage to dare? He was talking about something much deeper than that. He was talking about, do you have the courage to think outside of the only box that you've known? Do you have the courage to think outside of the only box you've known? Meaning everything that mama and them did, everything that daddy did, everything that grandmama did, all your partners have done over the years. Do you have the courage to think outside of that? Like, do you have the courage to think outside of anything you've ever imagined? Let me get my key out. I'm gonna stay out here. I don't want to go in there yet, man. I don't want to be talking loud, to be honest. But Hannah was saying, do you have the courage to think outside of? Do you have the courage to think outside of anything you've ever thought? Like in other words, write your vision down on paper, right? And then analyze it, right? And then think 2 or 3 times greater than that. You know what I'm saying? Do you have the courage to dare? Because right now, let's say for example, let's say right now you're a man, for example, let's say just say you're a young man. You're a young man, early 20s, early 30s, whatever, and you're saying, hey, you know what? My goal is to be able to leave my city and get a job that's paying me this much money and have me this kind of life and drive this kind of car and yada yada. Like that's what I've seen everybody do. Like that's like when I get online, in my peers, when I get on Facebook and my kinfolk, like that's what everybody does. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to call it a win, and that's good. But Hannah was talking about quantum leaping. When he said the courage to dare, he was like, okay, that box has been established. Do you have the courage to think outside of that box? Can you think greater than that box? Like you wanted the $100,000 salary. Can you think 250? Can you think 500? Like in other words, when he says courage to dare, he's saying, do you even have like can you even fathom? Like in other words, do you even allow your mind to go outside of that? It's really what he was saying. Do you even allow your mind to go outside of that? Your goals right now, do you allow your mind to go outside of that, right? And I absorbed that truth, man. I absorbed that knowledge and started standing on it. I said, you know what? Let me see what my mind can do. Yeah, I had dreams of moving to Dallas for some years, and I finally accomplished that. But what if I wanted to leave the state of Texas? Then I said, let me think even bigger. What if I wanted to leave the whole country? You know what I'm saying? I had to allow my mind to do that. I had to have the courage to think that thought. Oh, I guess you're looking for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, brought that into my truth. And the third one, when he said the faith to do, man, and I said, man, that's when I really understood a lot of things. When Hannah said, do you have the faith to do? A lot of people, man, a lot of us, man, we can get these ideas and they remain ideas, bro. They remain ideas forever. And the whole time they're ideas, we think, and I'm speaking to myself, the whole time they're ideas in our mind, we think that, or we're calling it our vision, but it's not our vision. There's no life force behind it. It's just us taking small pieces of knowledge and an idea and composing this facade, composing this illusion of us moving towards something. But you can't move towards something that you're not standing on, that you haven't made your truth. So when he said faith to do, man, not only, again, the first thing I do, brothers, and y'all can ask my brothers in a circle. When we in the circle, man, having our powwows, when I'm sitting there talking, first thing I say is, hey, I'm talking to myself first, bro. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing on YouTube. I ain't sitting here preaching down. I'm sitting here talking to myself. One thing I found out when it came down to the faith to do, I understood that, of course, I was moving. I had some motion. Life was good. But a lot of what I was doing was talking. Like, I had a lot of ideas that I never really stood on and pushed forward. Right? Faith to do. So I said, man, you know what? I'm tired of talking, man. I want to start putting boots on the ground, man. And I just started implementing that, man. So all in all, what I'm saying is, right? Because y'all know after so much time, I get to just, going all over the place. It's not about knowledge as much as you think it is. Like one man can read 1,000,000 books. Let me get my key out, bro. One man can read 1,000,000 books and quote 30,000 Bible verses. You know what I'm saying? And be knowledgeable. And have the robes and have the whole shebang and have the credentials and all that stuff. Or one man can read one book and take one quote out of that and stand on it and build a whole new life. It's knowledge over power, man. I mean, it's power over knowledge. Knowledge is good. Knowledge is inspirational. Knowledge will help you inspire people and all kind of things. But it's not power. It's not power, man. So, on my 3 a.m. walk this morning, man, I just want to share that with y'all, brother.
Going up. Doors closed.
Knowledge is good, but power is everything, brother.